Welcome to another episode of the Adrienne Ross Show, where sports and culture connect. It was great seeing Indiana defeat Las Vegas last night. You have to keep in mind that until the last time these two met, Indiana had lost to the Aces a plethora of times going back years. So now they have two in a row against Las Vegas. It also is huge because it means Indiana owns the tiebreak. So should it come down to that, it's thumbs up to Indiana. Now, I was live for the game, and so I shared my thoughts throughout the game, of course. And then after the game, I shared a little bit more of my thoughts. But I like to come back after the fact when I can and kind of pull everything together. And so that's what I'm going to be doing right now. I'm going to share some key points I feel that were evident in this game. So I'll just start with the beginning of the game. I felt Indiana came out with good energy and they played good defense. And as a result, Las Vegas wasn't shooting a good percentage. I also like having Sophie Cunningham in that starting lineup. I've got no problem with Lexi Hall. We love Lexi. She brings an incredible intensity herself. But right now, Sophie Cunningham is just on fire. And so giving her the nod to start, that's a thumbs up for sure. Now, I said Indiana started out strong, but of course, we saw that what we already know, in that it's a game of runs. And so that brings me to my second point, and that is, again, it's a game of runs. But what we saw from Indiana last night is that you don't get totally overwhelmed when a team like Las Vegas goes on a run. You have to be able to sustain runs, and then you have to be able to go on some runs of your own. And Indiana did that. Again, you got Las Vegas, you've got Chelsea Gray and Asia Wilson and Jewel Lloyd and Jackie Young. You've got players who can play, ballers who can ball. And so you can't get flustered. You have to just handle the run. Of course, you want to minimize runs, but then you handle those runs and then you go on some runs of your own. And I felt like they did that. Another key point is that you have to keep your head with poor officiating, especially in this league, because the officiating is, let me say again, poor. Let me show you an example of this. We're going to go over to X, to an account that is called AK. Let's go.
I mean, I don't know how. Watch this play right here. Look. We're going to call jump ball from behind. Look at Asia Wilson's like looking at the ref. Elliot Varson's like, you got to be kidding me.
This is why I like when Debbie Antonelli calls the game. You heard what she said there. They're going to call a jump ball from behind. Obviously, this isn't a jump ball. This is a foul. And Aaliyah Boston has every right to be upset. You see Asia Wilson there. You got Nalissa Smith over here. At least she's got good position right here. But there you have Asia Wilson come down. So she's grabbing for the ball. Okay. But then she's over her back. And look, is it me or is she smiling here? Maybe that's just intensity on her face, but it looks to me like she's smiling. Aaliyah's fighting for her life there with no help, of course, from the officials, who I don't mean help like you're supposed to give her something, but you're supposed to do your job. Come on, somebody. And so she's there. She's grabbing her. She's got her around. And Aaliyah is a tough cookie. Cookie sounds like the wrong word, but she's a tough cookie in this position. Oh my goodness. I sound like I'm like 90 years old by saying that. No offense to 90-year-old subscribers. I love you all. But so, I just mean old time language, right? And she's just fighting. And there is Asia looking at the official, probably going, hello, you're supposed to be on my side. We all know that I have the Asia special whistle. She's just looking, smile on her face. And then finally you get the whistle. And yeah, it is that jump ball. Bogus. But I repeat, you have to be able to keep your head, because this wasn't the only bad call. This is the WNBA. These are the officials. And this is the Indiana Fever playing against the Las Vegas Aces. Bad calls in the WNBA is like brushing your teeth in the morning. It just is supposed to be, apparently. So players have to keep their heads as frustrated as they were. And we could see some frustration during the game. Also, a key point in this game was Stephanie White's technical. Well, wait a minute, Adrienne. You just said you got to keep your head. You do have to keep your head. But there are times when you lose it. You don't want to be totally out of control, but there are times when you get yourself a technical and it turns things around. And as Debbie Antonelli pointed out during the game, Stephanie White had been riding these officials the whole game. And at one point, she was just absolutely done. She gets the technical, and the team goes on a run right after the technical. You had the technical, you had a steal, and then you had back-to-back three-pointers. The team was ticked off. The coach was ticked off. And sometimes you have to play ticked off to play well. You don't want to have to rely on being ticked off. You don't want to be ticked off, but I'm saying ticked off. Remember when Sophie Cunningham called it pissed off? Well, she wasn't even talking about the officials then, but they had come the next game and they played like they had something to fight for. And so the technical comes, the technical was needed, and the players responded. That was key. The other thing is that when there is frustration, as we saw in this game, you have to stay in it, whether it's the officiating or whether it's your game. Aaliyah Boston was frustrated at one point. I don't know if you noticed, but we noticed it in the live stream. She looked like she had tears in her eyes. She missed some bunnies. Obviously, she's not getting all the calls, and she just looked so frustrated with herself at one point, and the tears are in her eyes, and that you could see the team. Somebody had reached out to her, encouraged her. It's okay, let's go. But you got to stay in it because it's not a game of one play, right? There's so much involved in the game. Kelsey, she did not shoot a good percentage. She wasn't super efficient in this game, but it was not, the old saying is it's not how much you score, it's when you score. And Kelsey continued to shoot, but not just continue to shoot, because shooters shoot. But it's not just about shooters shooting. It's about, are you just going to be a shooter or are you going to be a scorer? Well, Kelsey's a scorer too. So she found other ways to score. Her shot wasn't falling. She attacked the basket. She's so quick. And when it mattered down the stretch, Kelsey Mitchell came alive. So throughout the game, Kelsey, she was 3 for 9 from 3, 8 for 24 from the field, but a plus 16 with her on the floor, 4 assists, and she led her team with 21 points. Because you keep your head in it, you keep fighting, you don't give up. You don't just say, well, it's a bad night. Well, you might say it's a bad night in this way, so let me try to do this. And it all comes together as it did. So no matter what, you stick with it. We saw that from Aaliyah as well. Aaliyah ended up with a double-double. She had 13 points, 10 rebounds. She had 3 assists, 2 steals, a plus 15 in what was a tough night for her, shooting 6 of 18 from the field, missing some bunnies, being frustrated, but the caliber of team you need to be to win and to make a vibe for the playoffs and to win championships is one who says, I got to keep my head in it. I got to keep pushing. Now, also, I want to point out, people who watch this channel, for sure, people in live streams love Michaela Timpson. It's always like, where's KK? Put KK in. And I'm often saying, KK's learning. She's a rookie. She's coming along. She's getting her feet wet in practice and then here and there in games because she has to develop and she has to grow. Now, what I loved about the strategy that Coach White used with Michaela, and we talked about this during the live stream, is that Michaela versus Asia, that's a butt whooping for sure. Maybe not down the road, but right now that's a tough one. And that was what I was explaining in the chat. But we noticed something. I pointed this out. Asia Wilson went out and Coach White put Michaela in. That's the maneuvering and the matchups that you find in coaching. And they waited a little bit, watched how Nalissa Smith was playing so that even when Asia came back in, Aaliyah Boston, who was sitting a little bit because she got into some early foul trouble. So then at one point in the game, Aaliyah's back in. Aaliyah is able to take on Asia, and then Michaela is able to take on Nalissa Smith. Now, I felt like the coaches said, let's just sit back and see what Nalissa's doing, and they feel comfortable with KK being able to go in there, especially since Dantas, she's been flat lately. She played 2 minutes. She was flat. So he said, let's get KK in there, make sure she's on Nalissa Smith. Now, Nalissa Smith did have a decent game. She did have 10 points and 10 rebounds, but Michaela wasn't guarding her that whole time. So we can't put all that on Michaela. And you watch as a coach how Nalissa Smith is scoring. And you say, what, I feel pretty good with KK in there right now. And so she got in there against Alyssa, being able to defend Alyssa, and she got some key rebounds in that game and made Alyssa work down there. So we are always proud of KK. She needs to be used wisely, and Coach Stephanie definitely did that yesterday. Another key point in the game is big shots. They made big shots. I already pointed this out with Kelsey Mitchell, but it wasn't just Kelsey Mitchell making big shots. Ari McDonald put the dagger in when it looked like, we're down like 1 minute, 33 seconds. We're sweating during the live stream in the chat. And Ari, just cool as she could be, just step back, boom, drains the three. Anybody on any given night should be able to knock down big shots. And last night, Ari McDonald just added to what was being done down the stretch big time. Also, offensive rebounds were big for this team down the stretch also. So this team had 36 rebounds in this game. 10 of them were offensive rebounds, and some of them were quite timely. Now, next to last, but certainly not least, is Natasha Howard. She started off the season making us a little bit uncomfortable, like, but she has been huge in many games, and she was huge last night as well in this 80-70 win. She had 18 points, 13 rebounds, 1 assist, 3 steals. She's just doing a whole lot. In 30 minutes, she has that 18.6 for 9 shooting, even hit a 3 and 5 for 7 from the line, including 5 offensive rebounds. Out of the 10 offensive rebounds, Natasha Howard had 5 of them. So shout out to her. So we had Natasha with 18 points to go along with Kelsey Mitchell's 21 points. And then we got 15 points from Sophie, 13 points from Aaliyah, and 9 points from Ari McDonald. Now, you probably heard Caitlin say at one point that if they have 5 people in double digits, it's going to be very difficult to beat them. Well, they didn't have 5, but Ari had 9, so she was 1 point away from that 5th player being in double digits, and she went 3 for 4 from the field, 3 for 3 from 3, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, and remember, she hit the dagger at the end. Then we also had Sydney Colson, who scored 4 points. So again, I got to shout them all out, but I really want to highlight Natasha Howard because she's come up big. And finally, key point for this game, for this win, and I say this jokingly, the Stranger Things uniform. Yes, indeed. Stranger Things, the uniform that Caitlin apparently said, can we bring this back? And next thing you know, there they are in the uniforms. I didn't even know that was a show. So it was during the live stream that I was like, that's a show? And they're like, oh yeah, it was Netflix. I've never heard of it, had no idea. I kind of agree with Caitlin. It kind of looks creepy, but hey, we'll take it. Stranger Things. And speaking of Stranger Things, I know that there are people who feel like it's over for the Fever. People have been crashing out. I've not ever crashed out on this in spite of all the adversity this team has gone through and really still dealing with. Stranger things can happen, then that this team can do some damage going forward. Step by step, lots to improve. But I agree with something I heard Rebecca Lobo say recently, and that is that without Caitlin Clark even, this team could make a run in the playoffs. And with Caitlin Clark, this team could vie for a championship. I've not changed my mind. I've said over and over again that the team has had ups and downs, and they've not been able to have the consistency that we wanted to see. So we've not even seen this team at the Fever's best yet. And so I'm still on the of the belief that it can be done. As far as Caitlin Clark and her return, I already told you yesterday, in the video about her update, I said, from what I hear, I'm not a doctor and I'm not on the inside, but when I interpret the official release they put out and what I'm hearing people say, it sounds to me that it's in Caitlin Clark's court. Sounds to me there's nothing major going on, nothing new for sure is going on. And I know there are people who say, Caitlin, you don't come back, just sit out. But I'm telling you right now that if it's in Caitlin's court, I doubt very seriously you're going to find a player who is able to come back and is not going to come back. That's just not going to happen. And I do believe from what I'm picking up, it's probably going to be sooner rather than never. And some of it might be when she's mentally and psychologically ready to get back out there, but we'll see. Like I said, I don't know. Everybody has an opinion, but I tell you right now, I'm sure Caitlin Clark is not on social media listening to the opinions of random people. She's listening to the opinions of those who are advising her medically, and she's listening to what her body tells her. But I'm going to say it again. Stranger things have happened. I still believe this team can make a push, and I believe you might be surprised what you see. But again, one game at a time. And the next game schedule, of course, is Chicago, and that is in Chicago. So for now, that's it. That's what I got for you in terms of a wrap up and those points I wanted to point out. I'll catch you next time, God willing. God bless you abundantly.